Emotional intelligence isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself first. You can't influence what you can't understand, and that starts with you. Every emotion you feel, frustration, disappointment, anger, is a signal, not a weakness. The mistake most people make is trying to bury those feelings instead of learning from them. When you understand what triggers you, you stop reacting and start responding. You gain control not by silencing your emotions, but by making peace with them. Because confidence doesn't come from pretending you're calm. It comes from knowing you can stay calm even when everything around you isn't. Listening with curiosity, not judgment, turns conversations into connections. When someone speaks, most of us are already planning our response before they even finish. That's not listening, that's defending. Real listening means letting go of the need to be right and focusing on understanding what the other person feels. People don't want perfect words, they want to feel seen and heard. So when you listen to learn, not to reply. That's how respect is built. And the moment you create that kind of space, communication stops being a battle and starts becoming a bridge. The pause between what you feel and what you say is where your power lies. In that small moment, that breath, that heartbeat, you decide what kind of person you want to be. Emotional intelligence isn't about never feeling anger or frustration. It's about managing what those emotions make you do. The pause gives you clarity. It turns reaction into reflection, impulse into intention. When you practice this, your words become sharper, calmer, and more meaningful. You stop saying things you regret and start saying things that create respect. Because maturity isn't silence, it's choosing when and how to speak. Emotional intelligence doesn't make you softer. It makes you stronger and more respected. It's what separates people who just talk from those who truly connect. The ones who can stay composed when others lose control, who can listen even when emotions run high, those are the people everyone listens to. That's the quiet power emotional intelligence gives you. It teaches you to stand tall without yelling, to lead without demanding, and to communicate without chaos. And that's not just good for conversations. That's good for every relationship in your life. Emotional intelligence isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself first. Most people think that emotional intelligence means knowing how to read a room, calm someone down, or manage difficult personalities. But that's only the surface. The real depth of emotional intelligence lies in how well you understand your own emotions, how you process them, and how you let them guide or misguide you. Because the truth is, you can't manage what you can't recognize. And if you're constantly trying to control the emotions of others, you'll always be playing defense instead of living with self-control. Mastery doesn't come from manipulating situations, it comes from managing your reactions. Think about it. How often do you find yourself frustrated because someone said something that got under your skin? Or anxious because something didn't go the way you wanted? Most of the time, it's not the situation that breaks your peace, it's your interpretation of it. Emotional intelligence is what helps you slow down enough to see that moment clearly before it owns you. It's not about suppressing how you feel, it's about being aware of what you feel and deciding what to do with it. You don't need to push emotions away, you need to learn to navigate them. When you start mastering your emotions, you begin to realize how much of your energy used to go into things that don't deserve it. You stop reacting to every opinion, every look, every piece of criticism. You start saving your strength for what actually matters. People who lack emotional intelligence often live in a constant state of reaction. They get angry easily, offended quickly, and thrown off balance by small things. But those who master their inner world respond with intention. They understand that not every comment deserves attention, not every argument deserves a defense, and not every emotion deserves an audience. It takes awareness to admit when your emotions are leading instead of your logic. It takes humility to pause before responding, to recognize that your first reaction isn't always your best one. That pause, that space between emotion and response, is where emotional intelligence is built. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something you practice every time life tests you. Every time you choose patience over pride, understanding over anger, and peace over control, you strengthen that muscle. And with time, it becomes natural. You stop being easily shaken because you've learned how to stand grounded within yourself. Emotional intelligence is not about perfection, it's about awareness and growth. You're not supposed to feel calm all the time. You're supposed to notice when you're not and then guide yourself back. That's real mastery. Because when you can identify your emotions, not just feel them, but name them, you take away their ability to control you. You stop being the passenger and become the driver. You don't get lost in guilt or frustration. You recognize them as signals that something within you needs attention. And once you understand what those emotions are trying to tell you, you can take action from clarity, not chaos. Here's the thing about people who have mastered themselves: they carry a calm that's unshakable. They don't need to control others because they've already learned to control their own state. You can feel it when you're around them. They listen more, they speak less, and when they do, their words carry weight. That's not luck, that's emotional discipline. They've trained themselves to respond instead of react, to stay centered even when others try to pull them off balance. They know that the moment you lose control of your emotions, you give someone else power over your peace. And the truth is, emotional mastery doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying things that aren't yours to fix. It means you can empathize with someone's pain without drowning in it. You can understand anger without matching it. You can face conflict without becoming chaos. That's strength, not loud, not dramatic, but steady, controlled strength that commands respect. You stop needing validation from how others react to you because your validation comes from how you handle yourself. When you master yourself, you become harder to manipulate. No one can guilt you into decisions or push you into reactions that don't align with your peace. You learn to separate emotion from ego. You learn to say less and mean more. And that shift, from trying to control the world to controlling your own response, changes everything. You move through life with quiet confidence because you trust yourself to handle whatever comes next. And that's the kind of intelligence that builds us lasting peace, genuine connection, and real power. Listening with curiosity, not judgment, turns conversations into connections. Most people listen to respond, not to understand. They wait for their turn to speak, for their chance to prove a point, or to defend themselves. But real listening, the kind that builds trust and deepens relationships, comes from a place of curiosity. It's when you stop trying to be right and start trying to understand where the other person is coming from. When you do that, everything about the conversation changes. The walls drop, the tension eases, and what was once an argument becomes a moment of understanding. Curiosity says, "Help me see what you see." Judgment says, "I already know what's right." One opens a door, the other builds a wall. And that's why curiosity is the foundation of emotional intelligence. It allows you to step outside your perspective long enough to recognize that other people's experiences shape how they think, speak, and feel. When you're curious, you don't assume, you ask. You don't interrupt, you lean in. You don't listen to fix, you listen to learn. And that subtle shift in energy is what turns a difficult conversation into a meaningful connection. The truth is, people aren't always looking for advice, they're looking to feel seen. They want to know that someone is actually hearing them, not just waiting to talk. When you listen without judgment, you give them that gift. You tell them, you don't have to defend your feelings here. And that safety is rare. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, few people are willing to truly listen. That's why curiosity stands out. It creates space for understanding instead of conflict, empathy instead of ego. Listening with curiosity doesn't mean you have to agree with everything someone says. It means you respect them enough to hear them out without letting your opinions get in the way. You can disagree and still be kind. You can hold your boundaries and still be open-minded. That's the balance emotionally intelligent people maintain. They don't listen to win, they listen to connect. They understand that understanding someone doesn't mean surrendering your values. It means recognizing that more than one truth can exist at the same time. When you start practicing this kind of listening, you'll notice how it transforms your relationships. The people around you will feel safer being honest. They'll share more. Defenses will drop. Why? Because curiosity disarms judgment. When someone feels that you're genuinely trying to understand them, they stop trying to protect themselves from being misunderstood. You build bridges instead of barriers. Even in disagreements, there's respect. Even in differences, there's connection. And that's where growth happens, right in that space between listening and understanding. Curiosity also makes you a better communicator because it slows you down. Instead of reacting emotionally, you take the time to explore what's actually being said. You notice tone, choice of words, emotion beneath the surface. You start to hear what's not being spoken, the fear, the insecurity, the need for reassurance. That's emotional intelligence in motion. It's not about hearing the words, it's about understanding the message. The more curious you are, the more clarity you find, and the less room there is for unnecessary conflict. But curiosity requires humility. It takes strength to say, maybe I don't know the whole story. It takes self-awareness to silence your inner voice long enough to truly hear someone else's. Judgment is easy. It's automatic. Curiosity, on the other hand, takes effort. It demands patience, compassion, and emotional control. You can't be curious and defensive at the same time. You can't seek to understand and seek to win simultaneously. You have to choose one. And choosing curiosity doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. Listening with curiosity is also one of the most powerful ways to calm conflict. When emotions run high, people expect resistance. They expect to be argued with, dismissed, or ignored. So when you respond with curiosity instead, when you ask questions instead of raising your voice, you disrupt the cycle. You change the tone of the entire interaction. It's hard for someone to stay angry when they feel understood. It's hard to keep shouting when someone is genuinely listening. Curiosity is the quiet force that diffuses chaos without confrontation. In relationships, curiosity is what keeps communication alive. When you stop being curious, you start assuming. And assumptions are what kill connection. You assume you know how your partner feels, what your friend meant, or what your coworker intended. But the truth is, you don't, not until you ask, not until you listen. Every time you approach a conversation with curiosity, you give yourself a chance to grow closer instead of drifting apart. You give the other person a chance to show you something new about who they are. Listening with curiosity doesn't just improve your relationships with others, it strengthens your relationship with yourself. When you practice listening this way, you start applying the same principle inward. You become curious about your own emotions instead of judging them. You start asking yourself why you react a certain way instead of labeling it as good or bad. That same curiosity that heals conversations with others also heals the dialogue within you. It replaces criticism with compassion, defensiveness with awareness, and noise with understanding. Because in the end, curiosity isn't just a communication skill, it's a mindset. It's the choice to see people, not problems, to ask questions instead of making assumptions, to connect instead of compete. When you listen with curiosity, you remind others and yourself that understanding is always more powerful than judgment. That's where respect is built. That's where real connection begins. The pause between what you feel and what you say is where your power lies. It's the space that separates reaction from response, emotion from intention, chaos from clarity. Most people don't realize how much strength exists in that single breath, that brief silence before words leave your mouth. In that pause, you choose whether to speak from emotion or from awareness. You decide whether to add fuel to the fire or to put it out. That's where real self-control begins. Not in ignoring your feelings, but in mastering the moment between feeling and expressing them. When emotions hit, they hit fast. Someone says something that stings, you feel disrespected, misunderstood, or hurt, and before you even process it, the words are out. But that moment right before you speak, that heartbeat of hesitation, that's where emotional intelligence lies. It's the split second that determines whether you're going to regret what you say or be proud of how you handled it. Power isn't in volume or dominance, it's in the ability to stay calm when everything inside you wants to react. The pause gives you time to check in with yourself. It lets you ask, what's really happening here? What do I actually want to say? That pause is not weakness, it's control. It's not avoidance, it's awareness. It's saying, I don't have to be ruled by what I feel in this exact second. You see, emotions are powerful, but they're temporary. Anger, frustration, disappointment, they all pass. But words can't be taken back once they're out. And when you react without thinking, you often hand your power to the very thing that upsets you. The pause lets you take it back. It gives you the power to lead the moment instead of letting the moment lead you. Imagine if more people practiced this. Fewer arguments would spiral, fewer relationships would break over impulsive words, fewer misunderstandings would grow into resentments. Because the truth is, most conflicts don't start with what's said. They start with what's not paused. The pause lets emotion settle enough for reason to rise. It lets you respond with clarity instead of confusion. It's like giving yourself a second to clean the window before looking through it. You see things as they are, not as they feel in the heat of the moment. It's easy to speak when you're emotional. It's harder to wait. But the ones who wait, even for a few seconds, are the ones who learn how to turn emotion into influence. The pause allows empathy to enter the room. It lets you consider how your words might land on someone else. It gives you the time to align your intention with your tone. That's why people who master the pause are not just good communicators, they're respected ones. They know when to speak and when to stay silent. They don't react to prove a point. They respond to make one. That small silence also gives others something they're not used to, your presence. In most conversations, people talk over each other, rush to defend, or interrupt. But when you pause, you create space for understanding. You show patience, and that patience communicates confidence. It tells the other person that you're not afraid of silence, that you're thinking, that your words will have meaning when they come. Silence in communication isn't empty, it's powerful. It's where trust is built, where intention forms, where truth gathers strength. The pause is also where self-awareness grows. It's in that quiet moment that you notice your triggers. You recognize the patterns of your reactions. You begin to see that not every emotion needs an audience and not every thought deserves a voice. You start to understand yourself better, why something hurt, why you felt defensive, why you wanted to react. The more you practice pausing, the more emotionally intelligent you become, because the pause is where you move from impulse to insight. And yes, it takes discipline. It's not easy to hold back when your feelings are loud, but emotional maturity is built in the moments when you don't let temporary emotions cause permanent damage. The pause becomes your emotional armor. It protects your peace, your relationships, your reputation. It keeps you from saying something that may win the moment but lose the person. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Soon, you won't need to remind yourself to pause. It will become who you are. Calm, composed, in control. Think about the most powerful people you've met or listened to. They don't rush to speak. They take their time. They think before they talk. That pause commands attention. It draws people in. It makes every word count. Because when you don't fill every silence with noise, your words start to carry weight. You become someone others listen to, not because you're louder, but because you're deliberate. The pause before you speak gives your voice authority and your message impact. In relationships, the pause can mean the difference between escalation and resolution. When you take that breath before reacting, you allow understanding to step in where defensiveness would have taken over. You give yourself the chance to ask questions instead of make accusations, to respond with care instead of anger. That's how you build stronger connections. By mastering the moments most people lose control in. The pause between what you feel and what you say is the ultimate form of emotional power. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being emotionally aware. It's about understanding that power isn't in saying everything that comes to mind. It's in choosing what's worth saying. The pause reminds you that your feelings deserve to be acknowledged, but not every feeling deserves a reaction. And once you learn to live in that pause, you stop being controlled by emotion and start controlling your energy, your peace, and your voice. Because real strength doesn't shout, it waits, breathes, and then speaks with purpose. Emotional intelligence doesn't make you softer. It makes you stronger and more respected. Somewhere along the way, people started confusing emotional intelligence with weakness. They think being calm means being passive, that showing empathy means being walked over, that understanding others means agreeing with them. But the truth is, emotional intelligence is the quiet strength most people never develop. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about mastering them. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's about handling it with composure. It's not about pleasing people, it's about understanding them deeply enough to communicate in a way that earns their trust and respect. Think about it. Anyone can get angry. Anyone can raise their voice. Anyone can dominate a conversation with volume or force. But it takes real control to stay steady when someone else is trying to push your buttons. It takes power to keep your cool when the room is tense. It takes maturity to listen instead of react. That's what emotional intelligence gives you. Not a soft heart, but a strong mind. It gives you the ability to walk into any room and manage not just the conversation, but the energy in it. You become the person others look to when things get uncomfortable. Because they can sense that your emotions don't run you, you run them. People often mistake aggression for confidence, but the most respected people aren't the loudest or the toughest. They're the ones who make others feel safe, seen, and heard. That's emotional intelligence in action. When you can understand someone's tone beneath their words, when you can notice what's not being said, when you can respond with calm instead of chaos, that's strength. Because it means you're operating from awareness, not impulse. You're leading the conversation instead of reacting to it. That's why emotionally intelligent people often rise faster, lead better, and build stronger relationships, because people trust calm energy more than they trust loud authority. There's a quiet confidence that comes with being emotionally aware. You don't need to prove yourself because you understand yourself. You don't chase validation because you already have clarity. You don't take things personally because you can see beyond the surface. Emotional intelligence gives you perspective. You stop seeing every disagreement as a threat and start seeing it as information. You stop reacting to emotion and start responding to intention. You realize that most of the time, people aren't trying to hurt you. They're just expressing their own hurt, their stress, their fear. And instead of matching their chaos, you bring stability to the moment. That's not softness. That's leadership. When you're emotionally intelligent, you don't let your emotions drive the car. They sit in the passenger seat. You still feel them, acknowledge them, and learn from them, but you don't hand them the steering wheel. That's power. Because people who can control their emotions can control outcomes. They know how to steer a conversation toward resolution instead of argument, how to use empathy as a bridge instead of a shield, how to make people feel understood without losing themselves in the process. That's not about being nice. It's about being wise. It's emotional strategy, and it's one of the greatest strengths a person can have. It also changes how people perceive you. When you stay calm in situations that shake others, people start to see you differently. They trust you more. They listen to you more. They respect you more. Because calm energy commands attention. Emotional intelligence builds your credibility without you ever needing to demand it. People start coming to you for advice, for clarity, for direction. You become the anchor in the room, not because you have authority over others, but because you have authority over yourself. And let's be real. Emotional intelligence takes courage. It's not easy to stay patient when you're misunderstood. It's not easy to hold your tone when someone's losing theirs. It's not easy to respond with empathy when all you want to do is defend yourself. But every time you choose to respond with intelligence instead of impulse, you're strengthening something inside you that most people ignore. Emotional discipline. That's what makes you powerful. Not your title, not your volume, not your words, your control. Your ability to stay centered when others are spinning is what sets you apart. The strongest people aren't the ones who fight every battle. They're the ones who know which battles are worth fighting. Emotional intelligence helps you choose. It helps you step back, observe, and act intentionally instead of emotionally. It helps you protect your peace while still standing your ground. It gives you the balance between firmness and compassion, between strength and understanding. And that balance is what makes people respect you, not out of fear, but out of admiration. Emotional intelligence doesn't make you softer. It makes you sharper. It helps you navigate people, pressure, and problems with grace. It's the difference between reacting to life and leading it. When you know how to manage your emotions, you stop being unpredictable, and that's when people start trusting you. They know what to expect from you. They know you won't explode under stress or crumble under pressure. That predictability builds respect. Because while anyone can be strong when life is easy, it's emotional intelligence that keeps you strong when it's not. So don't ever let anyone make you believe that emotional intelligence is a weakness. It's the quiet, steady kind of strength that outlasts noise and ego. It's what separates people who merely speak from those who connect. It's what transforms good communicators into powerful leaders. And when you master it, you don't just earn attention, you earn respect, trust, and influence that lasts. Because real strength isn't about overpowering others. It's about understanding yourself so deeply that nothing outside of you can shake who you are inside.